Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with part 43, John Reuchlin, Book 7, Some Christian Students of the Kabalah from the Doctrine and Literature of the Kabalah by Arthur Edward Waite. 6. John Reuchlin. As these sketches are not constructed biographically, there will be no difficulty in regarding the subject of the present notice as the representative of a group. Which group illustrates most effectively the standpoint and purpose of our inquiry as regards the Christian students of the Kabalah. The missionary enthusiasm, which may be said to have begun with Mirandola, which, if Lully had been a Kabalist, would have been already at fever heat in the Doctrine illuminatus of Majorca, which ceased only in the early part of the 18th century, assumed almost the aspect of a movement between the period of Reuchlin and that of Rosenroth. It was not a concerted movement. It was not the activity of a secret society or a learned body. It was not actuated by any occult interests, and perhaps still less by those of an academic kind. The shape which it assumed in its literature was that of a deliberate and successive attempt to read Christian dogma into the written word of Kabbalism. It does not appear so strenuously in the work of Rosenroth as it does in the collection of Pistorius, because in the days of the Kabalah denudata, there was perhaps more reason to hinder such intellectual excesses. Nor is it so strong in the writings of Reuchlin as in those of Archangelus de Burgo Nuovo. It is impossible to survey the vast treatises extending in some cases to hundreds of folio pages by which the enthusiasm is represented, and it is fortunately not necessary. We have only to establish their proper connection with Kabbalism and to show that it has been so far misconceived by occultists. We are justified in regarding Eliphas Levi as to some extent the mouthpiece of modern occult thought. It is to him more than to anyone that such thought owes its impulse towards the Jewish tradition as to the absolute of philosophy and religion, the alliance of the universal reason and the divine word. It was he first who told us that all truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabalah and return therein, that it has the keys of the past, the present and the future. In order to receive initiation into this great tradition, he has counseled us, among other books, to have recourse to the Hebrew writers in the collection of Pistorius. Following this direction, occultists have been taught to regard the famous Basel folio as a storehouse of genuine Jewish tradition. No impression could well be more erroneous. The works ingarnered by Pistorius are neither the Jewish tradition nor commentary of authority thereon. It is well also to add that they are not the work of occultists or of persons who believed that Catholic doctrine or Lutheran is wholly derived from the Kabalah. The writers are of three types. 1. The Jew who had abjured Israel and directed his polemics against it. He is represented by Riccius, and his presence is fatal to Levi's standpoint. Levi recommended the Christian to become a Kabalist. Riccius thought it logical for the Kabalist to turn Christian. 2. The born Christian who believed that the Jew was in the wrong for continuing in Judaism when the Kabalah taught the doctrine of the Trinity, the divine word, and so forth. He also is in opposition to Levi, who thought the Jew was in the right because the germ of all dogmas could be found in the traditions of Israel. This type is represented by Reuchlin, who is learned, laborious, and moderate, but also by Archangelus de Burgo Nuovo, who does frequent outrage to good sense and seems to regard the Kabalah as a notebook to the New Testament. Reuchlin toyed with Lutheranism. Archangelus was a Catholic prelate. 3. The purely natural mystic who might be either Jew or Gentile, who has no Kabbalistic connections worth reciting, and to whom Christianity does not seem even a name. He is represented by a writer who, as a fact, was born a Jew and seems to have been included by Pistorius because of his supposed conversion. I refer to Abravanel, whose philosophy of love is the subject of special mention by Eliphas Levi as if it were a textbook of Kabbalism. The dialogues have been already dealt with, and here it is enough to say that their citation annihilates Levi, because a student of the Kabalah might as well be referred to the art of Ovid. As regards Pistorius himself, the only point at which he makes contact with occultism is in the fact that his enterprise was undertaken, among other reasons, as a counterblast to the superstitions which the Kabalah had promoted in Christendom. A reference, we may presume, to the unfortunate budget of Agrippa and to the increasing grimoire literature. The Kabbalistic studies of the editor began in his boyhood, but so far from leading him to the boasted certitude of Levi, he passed under their escort into Protestantism, and there was conferred upon him the august distinction of figuring as one of the deputies charged to present the Lutheran Confession of Faith to the Diet of Augsburg. Having registered the fact itself as an illustration of the quality of his progress towards the absolute, it is of course permissible to regard his sympathies with the attempted purgation of the Church in a spirit of clemency, perhaps even of interest, or to confess at least that they were excusable on the ground of natural infirmity, seeing that he was for long subjected to persecution, fostered by a monkish inquisitor, because he had saved the books of Jewry from confiscation and burning throughout all Germany. In place of them, as opportunity afforded, they burnt De Verbo Mirifico and De Arte Cabalistica, the contributions of Reuchlin to the right understanding of the secret tradition in Israel. The treatises remain all the same as witnesses of the standpoint of Christian students in the 16th century, and they help to warrant us in affirming that the chief Latin collection of Kabbalistic writers outside the Kabalah denudata contains no evidence in support of the occult hypothesis. I must by no means leave this brief and confessedly inadequate notice of Reuchlin and his connections without a word of reference to his learned pupil, J.A. Widmanstadt, whose collection of Hebrew manuscripts, for the most part Kabbalistic, is one of the great treasures of the Library of Munich. In the course of his lifelong studies, he gave special attention to the Zohar and to the theurgic side of the Jewish tradition. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much,